Welcome everybody, Gage here from Sharp. Today's video is all about sharpening the tip of your knife. In my sharpening journey, I found the most difficult part of learning to sharpen the entirety of my blade properly was getting a nice crispy and sharp sort of front third of my knife here. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you a few tricks that helped me to get really good contact here in the front third of my knife and get a nice pointy tip on my blade without affecting the profile of my knife. So without further ado, let's get into it. So when we have people come into the shop to take our sharpening classes, I find the most difficult part that everyone has when they're first learning how to sharpen is going to be sort of this third of the knife close to the tip here. In my experience, this is the most difficult part for most people to get good contact on, and most people find it really difficult to get a nice, really crispy, pointy tip on their blade. Now, I find that there's a number of reasons for this, but first and foremost, it's mostly to do with your deburring process. So I'm going to jump on the stones here. I'm going to show you how to get a really nice, sharp, sort of tip of your knife here and get it nice and pointy and get this part of the knife real sharp. So first things first, we're going to show you that this is dull, which it is not. So we're going to have to just sacrifice our nice Shirokamo bunka here and get it really nice and dull. Oh, this is painful. Okay, we should be nice and dull now. Yeah. Not going through the paper whatsoever. So we've got a very dull knife here. We're gonna obviously get the total length of this blade nice and sharp, but putting special emphasis on just showing you guys some tips for this part here. Tips for the tip. Of course, we're gonna start out on our lowest grit stone. This is a Deburring 220 grit stone. This has become a shop favorite. It's in our mind, the best low grit stone that money can buy. It's not cheap, but it is really effective. It stays flat for a long time, cuts really fast. So yeah, really great stone. It's nice and wide and nice and long too, so you've got lots of surface area to work with. First things first, get your stone nice and flat. We want to take out as many variables as we possibly can when we're sharpening our knife, and making sure our stone is nice and flat is going to help us maintain a consistent angle while we're sharpening. So if you haven't seen our knife sharpening video, beginner's tutorial, I'll have Jake just link it up in the top right corner there for you so you can check that out before you get into this too much. But if you've watched that video already, you know that to find our angle, we can imagine that straight up and down is 90 degrees. We can cut that in half to get 45. Cut that in half again to get 22.5. And since this knife is made from Algami Super, which is a beautiful carbon steel made in Japan, we can go down from 22.5 to roughly around 15 to 18 degrees. So I'm going to show you just the normal process for sharpening first here, and then we'll get into again those tips for the tip. So I'm pushing the knife away from myself, applying pressure only as I push the blade away from myself, and then releasing pressure as I come back to the starting position. And I'm working all the way from the heel up to the tip. And I like to think of that whole process of going all the way from heel up to tip as a pass. In some other sharpening videos you may come across, people recommend counting every single stroke that you put in. And if that's helpful for you, by all means, go right ahead. But I find it's very easy to lose track of how many strokes you put in, much easier to keep track of how many passes that you've put in. So the first insight I have for you guys is that most people that take our class, I find that as they're moving from the heel up to the tip, they get a little bit too flat to the stone at the tip. This is going to do a couple of things. It's going to ruin that nice crisp sharpening line that you have right at the tip here. You're going to get all these sort of cloudy bits right at the tip, which is no good. Ideally, what we have is this nice crispy line that's the same length all the way from the heel up to the tip of the knife. And this is going to help us get a nice shape to our tip here as well. So what you really want to focus on is making sure you maintain your angle all the way through into the tip. Now, the next insight I have for you here is that as you do this, because of the natural curve or profile of the knife, no matter how accurate you are at maintaining your angle, the tip of your knife is going to come off of the stone. And that's because our knife kind of curls up like this. So it doesn't matter how well you maintain your angle, you're going to lose contact with the tip of your knife. So what you want to do when you're at the tip of your knife is think about sort of lifting the handle up a little bit. So we don't want to be changing our angle this way. We want to maintain our angle, but we want to sort of lift our tip up. Right now we have space between our tip and our stone. if I lift my handle up, I get nice contact on the stone. So obviously I've got my knife totally perpendicular to the stone here, but it illustrates well the point I'm trying to make here. So changing your angle this way is not going to get you good contact. Lifting the handle up a little bit so that you get right into that part of the tip of your knife is what's going to do it for you. So the next thing you want to think about is sort of the shape of the stroke that you're using at the tip of your knife. So rather than just going forward and backwards like so and only contacting a very small part of the tip, you want to sort of use these sort of like half moon sort of sweeping strokes where you lift the handle up as you're coming into the point of the knife and you set the handle back down as you're coming through the rest of your stroke like so. I like to refer to that as the crescent moon stroke. Patent pending. Cool. So those are the first two main points that I want to make for getting a nice pointy tip. I'm going to just kind of speed along here a little bit and get a nice burr formed on the total length of my knife until I show you the last sort of point that I want to make before we flip over to do the other side. Now that I've got a nice burr formed, it feels the exact same all the way up from the heel all the way up to the tip. I know that I've made good contact all the way from the tip to the heel, and I know that when I flip over to do the other side and I form the burr on the back side, I'm going to create that nice apex, which is going to lead to a really nice sharp edge. So before we leave this side of our stone to flip over to do the other side though, I just want to show you one thing that really helped me get a nice crispy tip here. I always found that when I'm doing these nice long strokes like so, it would help me get a really, really sharp sort of like heel third of the knife. So from here to here, I felt like I could get it really, really sharp. And what I discovered was because I'm starting the stroke on the tip of my knife and I'm finishing the stroke on the heel of my knife. And why that matters is because where you start your stroke, there's always gonna be a little bit of time here, unless you're like a robot, that your knife isn't perfectly contacting the stone here. It's going to take you a second to sort of find the angle and sort of get your stroke started properly. But by the time you make it to the heel, you've got that angle created properly, and you get really, really good contact as you come off of the stone like so. So what I started doing was I started pulling the knife back towards me and kind of, again, sort of trying to match the shape of the profile of my knife and almost give like a little flick as I'm coming off. And rather than finish my stroke on the heel, I'm trying to finish the stroke on the tip of my knife. And I found that really made a difference. It really allowed me to get a nice sharp tip, right, really sharp this front third of the knife here. It's also going to create sort of differential grain patterns in your knife, and you'll find that having the grains of your knife of your edge sort of facing in different ways is going to help you cut in different ways really effectively. So whether you're doing an up and down chopping motion, a push and pull, or a pushing motion or a pulling motion, ideally the grain is facing into the ingredient when you're cutting. So when you're using a pushing motion, you want your grain faced that way. When you're doing a pulling motion, you want your grain facing that way. And starting and finishing your stroke going both ways is going to help create that. So I'm going to show you what I don't mean when I say flick. I know flick can be a little bit of a general term, so I just really want to reiterate what I'm trying to get across here. So that's bad. That's not what I want. That's too aggressive, and you can hear it. You can hear sharpening is very like auditory in my mind as well. So like so I should come off like that, nice and gentle. I'm lifting the heel of my knife up as I come through, but I don't want to hear that. That's bad. What that's going to do is slowly turn the tip of your knife up, and then eventually you're going to get what looks like almost like a butchery knife, where it kind of curls up like that, and that's going to really make it difficult to get good contact at the tip of your knife. So Jake raised a great point here. What we don't want to also see you do is come off the stone like that. That's bad. That's gonna, I wonder if I damaged the tip there. No, we're okay. but that's really bad as well. That's gonna bend your tip the wrong way. You're likely gonna scrape across the side of the stone here as well, which is gonna dull the tip of your knife. And yeah, I can see like it's not super obvious, but we're not super crispy tip right now because of that. Difficult to get good contact at the tip of your knife. Cool guys, so now that we're feeling good, we've got a nice burr formed all the way from tip to heel. We're gonna flip over and do the other side. And now that I say that, I'm not quite happy with my heel, so give me a second here and get my burr formed at the heel a little bit better. And I guess I might as well make the point while we're here, like it works both ways. So if you find that you get a really nice front third of your knife here, works the exact same way on the back here. So as you're coming through, you really just want to make sure you get good contact at the heel of the knife as you're coming through. And maybe since I was focusing so much on the tip, I didn't really focus enough on the heel and get that nicely done there. So I'm gonna do a little bit more work here. Okay, now we're feeling good. Before I flip over, I need to make sure my stone's nice and flat, so I'm gonna flatten this guy up real quick. So now, of course, again, if you've watched our sharpening tutorial, you know we're gonna flip the knife over. We're going to move away from us and start our stroke furthest away from us on the stone. Our angle should be exactly the same. Our hand pressure, everything else is the same, but we're gonna apply pressure as we pull the knife towards ourselves like this. So same thing when we're doing the backside of our knife. When we're at the tip, we want to kind of imagine that as we're coming through, we need to lift our handle up ever so slightly so that we actually get good contact at the tip of our knife here. So as I'm coming through, I'm lifting up just a little bit, not too much. Obviously, depending on how curvy your knife is, will determine how much you need to lift the handle of your knife up to get contact with the tip. And then when we're doing our sort of long strokes, just to even all of our work out, I like to start at the tip, go all the way to the heel, and then do a stroke pushing the knife away from myself like so. And you'll probably notice there as I came through, my handle, not a ton obviously, but my handle sort of lifts up so that I make good contact with the tip of my knife there. And we'll show you one more time what we don't want to see you do, which is just like that. That's all we want. We don't want that. We want that. We don't want that. Okay, we're feeling really good here, guys. We've got a nice burr formed. It feels even all the way from the tip down to the heel. It feels the same sort of, feels the same all the way from tip to heel with my thumb here. So my last point that I'm gonna make for getting a nice crispy tip is with regards to your deburring strokes. We've kind of talked about this already, but when we're deburring, I like to use sort of a 2, or I guess maybe like a 4-stroke pattern when I'm deburring. So what I like to do is I go tip to heel, and then back, heel to tip, flip over, tip to heel, heel to tip. And I'm employing that same sort of mentality here as when I was doing those long strokes when I was finishing off either side of the knife. I'm trying to start and finish my stroke on both the heel and the tip. So when I do this, I'm starting on the tip, finishing on the heel, starting on the heel, finishing on the tip. Starting on the tip, finishing on the heel, starting on heel, finishing on tip. Our hand pressure should be getting lighter and lighter and lighter every time we do this, to the point where like we're basically applying 0 pressure at all. We're just keeping the knife and the stone in contact with one another. So we're going to check our work now. We're going to make sure our edge is feeling sharp. Off of a 220, it's going to feel a little toothy, but it should feel sharp. We also should not feel any burrs on either side of the blade here. And if you are, all that means is maybe you're not quite making good contact in that section of the knife. So try not to focus too much on one part of the knife, but just put in a few more deburring strokes, lightening up on your hand pressure. Really take your time, make sure you're getting good contact everywhere on the edge of the knife. and make sure your stone's flat. Jake raises a good point here. If you're coming off of a 220 and you've done a good job, you should still be able to cut paper with it. It's not gonna feel great. It's not gonna be silky smooth, but no point in going to a higher grit at this point if I haven't done a good job on my 220. So let's see if I pass the test here. Yes, I do. And of course we wanna test every part of our knife here, right up to the tip. And we're looking good. All right, guys, I am going to forge ahead here. We'll maybe just cut in some nice sexy B-roll of me sharpening the knife. Everything that I've said to this point applies on the next grit stones that we're gonna use. So for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna go on to my 700 grit stone here next. Move on to a 1000 grit, and then we'll stop there and we'll show you how we're doing. So there you have it, guys. We've got a nice crispy sharp tip on our knife. I hope that you found this video helpful. This again was one of the biggest issues I had when learning how to sharpen a knife. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel for more knife related content, and until the next one, stay sharp.